So we are recording right now. Just waiting for Ralph to get back. And he had to grab a beer because I'm drinking a little red wine today. I don't know what I'm drinking. Desire, Lush, and Zen. Yum. All right. So far, so good. It's kind of cool label looking, and looks like a red-headed woman with a tattoo on her back that says Zen. But anyway, without Lynn today, folks, I'll tell you, it makes me sad. Last minute, she had to go away. So, oh well, we could do it on our own through the holidays. There he is, coming back. Oh, look at that frosty glass. Stella.
Yeah, this is probably sacrilege, though.
Pouring a Heineken in a Stella glass. I don't know. I think you can get away with that. I think that's fine.
Don't tell anyone.
No, I won't say a word to anyone at all. So, but it's just, we just, like I said, it's cocktail conversation. We let it flow and naturally go where it should. It'll kind of come to the end as we come to the end. And then, but do you have a hard stop at all?
I don't. No, I'm pretty good.
Average time, I mean, I do keep a timer now. We try to keep it around 60 minutes just because if we go a little over, a little under, that's fine. If we're way under, then you're absolutely boring and have nothing to talk about and we won't even air the episode. But I doubt that at all from reading about your stuff. So
yeah.
I will jump in as we start. I do just give me a minute to thank our sponsor for the show and then we'll get right into the show. So
sure.
Got any other questions before we get rolling?
Sounds good. So obviously you're a business themed podcast and is it just talking to business owners and learning about what they do and
It kind of sort of, I mean, like I said, it goes where it goes. Sometimes it's more focused on business. Sometimes it's human interest. We have we cast a wide net with our audience. So we have the, business owners and potential entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, folks who are thinking about starting a business or others that have and they're looking for some advice. And then we have the folks who are just like, I just like your show and I'd love to hear the stories that people tell and their, where they came from, how they got to where they are, the antithesis of what they're doing now and why the hell they get out of bed each day and what makes them tick. So it's all over the place.
Yeah.
So,
right.
I mean, if you want to talk about spreadsheets and how to collate, different columns and things like that, we could, but I think you and I would both be bored in about 30 seconds.
Yeah. No, and I think we'll have plenty to talk about. And for at least inspiring people to, that are looking to get into the travel industry at all, I just relaunched a course that I called Tour Organizer Training, Get Paid to Travel, where I teach people how to do what I do. Because a lot of people were asking me, how can I make a living from travel? So I created this online course. So it's something I'm just relaunching.
That'll be good. And there will be a point during the show where I'm just going to be like, all right, Ralph, plug it. Plug your business, plug everything you do, plug your books. How many books do you have now? Four books?
I've got something like seven or 8 books, but I just put together a bundle of 3 of my books into one. So that's the main thing I'd like to talk about.
Sure, we could do that.
Yeah.
We could do that. All right, you ready to get this thing started?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, I'm going to hit this big old green button right here. Normally, you don't get to see all the equipment, but Lynn's not here, so. Well, 3, 2, 1. Folks, welcome back to Beer. Let me rephrase that, folks. I'm going to hit stop, and I'm going to do that again.
Yeah.
Folks, welcome to Toasting the Business. I am here by myself because Lynn had to get on a plane at the last minute. She sent me a text and said, don't hate me. I have to go away. And so she left. So here I am again, flying solo. I think it's rolling the dice every week. That's it. That's all I could say. I'm just going to roll the dice and the dice will tell me whether Lynn's going to be here or not. But I actually got to spend the weekend or Saturday evening with Lynn and her husband. They in the town that I live in, they did the light up downtown, and so it was a good time. And hung out there and watched Santa come through the parade, and then went back to my house and sat around by the campfire. So anyway, and my our bartender's not here today, Megan. She's still in far away, but we miss her terribly, and not just because she makes amazing cocktails, but because she's a delightful person. And if anybody doesn't know who Megan is, she is the sponsor of our podcast. And the name of her company is called Perspective, and that is Perspective without an E on it. If you want to check out her website, it's getperspective.com. And what she does is she interviews people and makes videos of folks about their businesses and what they do. And she's got everything from a rock and roll dentist to a mortician to some idiot who runs a co-working office and has a podcast, to an ice farmer, to a former FBI interrogator. So she is all over the place. So if you or someone you know or your kids are trying to maybe find a career or a new career, go check out getperspective.com. And I think one of those people, our guest today, would actually fall right into that category. So Ralph, here we are. It's Ralph Velasco, correct?
That's right. Yep.
Oh, good. I got your last name right. I slaughter names all the time. So, Ralph, I don't know. You reached out to me. You reached out to the show, and I read what you did, and I'm like, the Continental Drifter, right?
That's right.
What the hell is the Continental? And by the way, you can swear on the show if you want. It's okay. You don't have to. There is no filter. Okay. The Continental Drifter. What the heck do you do?
Yeah, so since 2008, I've been organizing and leading small group trips around the world, and I've been doing this full time since then. And I've organized and led over 120 international multi-week trips around the world, over 100 here in the U.S. And I just really love to share the world with people. And so I go to these amazing places. I scout them out about a year in advance. And then I put together a trip that I think people will enjoy. And that's what I've been doing for 16 years now. And all 5-star reviews and over 50% repeat rates. So I think we're doing something right.
So yes, you are all 5-star reviews. That's awesome. And 50% repeat. That means people were like, I loved it so much, we're going to do another one. And Ralph is our guy. So I know a little bit about this, and we'll kind of get into it, because I think, one, this is, let's start here. I'm assuming that traveling and seeing the world is a passion of yours, or somewhere along the line, away, you said, I really enjoyed traveling. How can I do this and get paid? Am I on the right track? Fill in the blanks here.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I always say it only took me 45 years to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Most people never do. So I guess I'm lucky, right? Yeah. But yeah, it took me about 45 years to figure out, how to make a living from travel and photography. And I think a lot of it had to do with this perfect storm of the internet, digital photography, social media, and video, and all these good things that really help all small businesses in a lot of ways.
I mean, 2008, that was not a good year for a lot of folks. We had a bubble that burst in 2008. That's a hell of a time to launch a new business.
Yep, especially when you're a financial advisor.
Oh, is that what you did?
Which I was at the time.
Shit. No.
Yeah. So I had started the photography travel I started doing some photo walking tours where I was teaching people how to use their new digital devices, these new digital cameras that were coming out in the early 2000s. And so I thought that there might be a market for someone to teach people how to use those new devices. And I've always enjoyed photography. And I had just sold my second restaurant, and I was coming to the end of my initial 3-year lease, and I had to decide, was I going to sign for another 5 years, or was I going to make a change? And so I literally took a yellow pad, and on the left side, I wrote all the things I hated about the restaurant business. Had to have employees, got a retail space, come home smelling like a French fry, and about 10 other things. And I said, what's the opposite of those things? Well, I want to work for myself. I don't want employees. I want to work from wherever my laptop is. And I want to take a shower before work, not after. And so, yeah. And so I kind of figured that that this was the perfect time to start that kind of business. And so I moved to California 2005 to 8. And then, of course, we had the financial crisis in 2008, where I was kind of a newbie financial advisor and just barely scraping by. And then, you know, the shit hits the fan. And that was from that day on, the next day on, I was full-time doing this. So it was the best thing ever happened to me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I want to go back for a second because there's two things that you said. One, you had a restaurant and you survived for 3 years and get ready to re-up on a lease. And I mean, most people don't make it. You know, 60% of people that go into open up a restaurant fail within the first year. So kudos to you for 3 years in. And so that's dynamite. And the second thing was, you said you drew a line down the middle of the paper. And I don't think people realize the importance of something as simple as a T chart, basically, is what it's called. You just draw a line straight across, horizontal and vertical, and, you know, the plus and minuses. And that it's still so effective for pretty much anything. Even if you're shopping for the Christmas holidays right now, you know, it's like, they deserve this, yes or no, kind of thing. But
yeah, to see it in black and white, it really lays it out for you.
Yeah. So you decide, you just jump in. Obviously, photography was what, a hobby, or were you like a pretty damn, you must have been good at it or good enough in 2008, because folks were still, there was still film, but there was digital, and then phones are coming along.
Yeah, it was actually really good timing because, again, the digital photography was just sort of coming to be, and people were looking for resources of how to use these new digital cameras. Mm-hmm. They were a little bit different than the film cameras, and you kind of had to approach them differently. So I learned everything I could about shooting, and I've always been an amateur photographer. I've enjoyed photography, especially with all my earlier travels and stuff. So I've got some good people telling me that I had a good eye. So I got some encouragement.
Yeah,
and so I felt that I had some skills that I could pass along to people. Yeah,
that's last year we were in Boston, and Linda and I did a walking tour, which I'm telling you folks, if you travel, and I know we're gonna get into this, but anytime you can book any kind of a walking tour, a food walking tour, just do it. It's a great way to see the city. But we were doing a walking tour and getting the history of Boston, and there was this cobblestone alley, and it was famous for a reason, and I'm like, oh, I don't know the reason why, but it was so cool because it was a slight upgrade, and we're taking a picture, and the woman goes, okay, do this with your phone, and it was just flip it upside down and like set it right there on, the top of the phone is now touching a cobblestone, and take the shot that way, and it made such a difference. I'm like, who knew?
Yeah.
That one little trick changed the whole wide world. But let's go. Okay, I want to know, 2008, you're like, I'm committed. This is going to be my business. What is the first tour that you do?
Yep. So the first international trip that I ever did was to the Central European Christmas markets in Central Europe.
So you just jumped straight into, like, forget being in California. I'm going to do a European tour.
Yeah, no,
Holy
no,
shit.
you're right. Yeah, you asked me with the first one. That was the first one, first international tour.
Okay.
Excuse
What
me.
was,
So,
what was the first one? I want to hear about both.
yeah. So the very first one was like, as I mentioned, it was probably a one-on-one sitting across the kitchen table from someone who just got a new digital camera, going through the instructions, teaching them how to use it, and then walking out. I was living in Southern California at the time, so a beautiful place, and just walking out into the area and putting those that information to use and learning how to use the camera. But then I started creating these adult education courses.
Mhm.
So, about quarterly, you probably get these notifications from the city near where you live. And it's usually adult education for all kinds of stuff that you can learn just about anything. And a tip for your listeners is that this is a really great way to test any business idea, is to put it into a course or some kind of a teaching arrangement at your local city, which is adult education, and you don't need a teaching degree, so anyone could teach these courses.
Mhm.
And that's what I ended up doing. So I put together like a 45-minute to an hour talk about how to improve your photography skills and using these new digital cameras. And so that, one thing led to another. And then I started doing half-day trips and then full day. And then we'd take groups out to Joshua Tree National Park or Death Valley. And then I would started bringing groups back to Chicago, where I'm from, so that I could get a free trip back.
There you go.
Yeah. And then the first international trip was the Central European Christmas markets after I went full-time.
Why did you choose the Central European Christmas? That is a mouthful. Central European Christmas markets. What made you say this is going to be the first trip we're going to do international?
Yeah, I was approached by a bigger travel company that saw that I was doing tours, local tours, and they asked if I would like to bring a group onto one of their trips.
Okay.
So I think the timing worked out, as far as, the holidays were coming up. I've been to the Central European Christmas markets before, so I knew that they're fantastic and very photogenic and a really impressive first trip. And so it just kind of went from there.
And when you say Central European, what countries or cities did you like? Were you in
Yeah.
Bauhaus? Where were you?
We started in Munich, Salzburg, Prague, Budapest, Bratislava, and Vienna.
Okay.
So kind of Western Central European Christmas markets. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, that is a good way to make, have your travel paid for free, or at least a good tax write-off to travel.
Yeah.
Right. So how well, I mean, how did the first one go? Were you like, yes, it was a smash hit, or, oh, I've really got to tweak these things? Because I mean, you did this in conjunction with a travel company.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming they were recommending the hotels and help set up different parts and other things. Was it a good partnership, or you're like, I don't want to use them again? It's because they put us in a 2-star hotel. I could hear, Frank going to the bathroom at 2 a.m. in the morning, because we know it's a European hotel. So there's one bathroom down at the end of the hall. What was it like? What was it like?
Yeah, that's not quite the case anymore with the bathrooms down the hall in Europe, but it was like that. So yeah, it was a great way for me to test my idea in an international place, to get the feedback from the clients, the testimonials, test it out with a small group.
Mm-hmm.
And but the problem was we were part of a bigger group, so it was a bigger, sort of a big bus tour, where we might have had 35, 40 people on the trip, and we were 7 or 8 people of that.
Mm-hmm.
So we were a subset. So what I learned very quickly is that in that situation, I had almost zero control.
Okay.
So as a photographer, I like to get out early in the better light before the tourist crowds, heat of the day, and get those kinds of shots, not to go to the tourist centers and just be inundated by other tourists. So I learned a lot on that trip, but it was a great testing grounds for my idea.
That's good. That's good. There's something, and I'm not a photographer by any means. It's like I'll just shoot pictures just because. You want a picture of this is great, good enough for me. I want to remember the moment, and as opposed to getting that amazing shot. But there is a lot to the lighting, right? That morning light, the warm light, and then it's the late afternoon is the other one, isn't it? And it's like,
Yeah.
you shoot midday when stuff is super bright. You want this. It's kind of like my office right now that we're in, and I've got to change the settings on these lights that are in the ceiling. These are newly installed, and it's like stark white, and I can't stand it. I like the warm, but anyway, give people a tip about that. What the best time of the day or evening to shoot is when.
Yeah, I would say early in the morning or later in the afternoon. It's called the golden hour, is like right around sunset and sunrise and sunset. But even better for me is the blue hour, which is before sunrise and after sunset.
The blue.
So that the sky turns like a deep blue in a lot of situations. And a lot of times when that sun sets, people pack up and they leave.
Mhm.
But if you stay just a little bit longer, you'll often be rewarded with this beautiful blue hour. Blue hour.
Mhm.
And again, it's just before sunrise and after sunset. So, but it creates just a really unique, interesting feel to the photographs.
Now, in today's society, because we're all using, everybody's using their phones with the most amazing camera that it has on it, which it's pretty incredible what
They
our
do.
phones have on them. Do they have to tweak well, it's not aperture f-stop anymore. What do they to catch those blue hours? Do they have to adjust the settings at all on their phones or even a
Yeah.
camera? I know some people are old school and want to stick with.
Yeah. I mean, the blue hour is a little bit lower light because the sun isn't up yet or has already set, depending on if it's morning or evening. But you do have to be aware of shutter speed, which our smartphones do have that capability of aperture, shutter speed. There's also apps that can work in conjunction with your phone's camera and allow you to get a lot more functionality and be able to be more creative. I am, I started out as a film photographer and then, went to the digital DSLRs and Micro Four Thirds systems. But man, I just loving the smartphone now, especially because I have a YouTube channel. I shoot a lot of video.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to make it easy on myself. I didn't want to have to carry another camera around just to do video. When these smartphones are so, they have such great multi-uses to them.
I thought you were going to say you went back to the old like Pentax and just click and
Not
shoot that way. No.
Not
So,
quite.
all right, I want to go. Now we're going to jump back, and people are like, "Here he goes again." But you come back from the Central European Christmas. See, I can't even say market.
Mhm.
You realize the good and the bad. Like I'm assuming as soon as you got back, we're not doing this massive 35 people tour bus group. And what was your biggest takeaway and how did you adjust from there? Because you said you were committed, you were all in 2008 to do this. What did you do? What did you do to make it better at that point?
Yeah. I mean, I again took all the pros and cons from the trips, and I take a lot of notes on every trip that I do, so that I remember, what I did right, what I could have done differently. And I realized that I have to be in control of when we do things, because I want to get out early or stay out later or
Mhm.
avoid crowds. And, and when you're with a bus of 30, 35 other people, you've got all of them to think about, and people are late. And, so I just realized that I needed to have more control, and my people wanted that,
Sure.
yeah, because they don't want to have to wait for that one person that's always late, or, those kinds. They want to be in the right place at the right time.
Right.
So I realized that I had to have that control. And so pretty much from then on, I always did my own trips where I could control everything.
Did you work with I don't know, a travel company at all to help you facilitate that? I mean, did you partner up with somebody, or you're just like, I'm the travel guy all around. I'm going to handle all of our accommodations, everything else, or did you decide, you know what, I want to focus on this. I'll let somebody else help me that I trust to do this for me.
Yeah, it's a good question. At the beginning, I was going to work with a middleman that was going to help me to do the things that I wanted to do in the location.
Mm-hmm.
Then I said, I want to cut out the middleman. And I realized very quickly that they earn every penny that they make, and that it's well worth it to work with a local person in the destination.
Yeah.
So I have a trip that I call the Pain in Spain. And it was a place that I'd been to many times, Spain. And I said, well, let's cut out the middleman. I want to, set up all the hotels and guides and restaurants, etc. And so we're going to 4 different locations: Madrid, Segovia, Toledo, and Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
But I needed 4 hotels. I needed 4 local guides, transportation between places, restaurants, activities, airport transfers, etc. So in the end, I realized that I had to deal with 36 different vendors.
Holy crap. No, no.
Yeah, yeah, and I realized very quickly that this was not the way to do it. I'm
Yeah.
not saving any time or money, and it's well worth it to cut in a middleman to have, because now then I just deal with one person.
Right.
If there's a problem, they deal with any of the specific problems. And so it worked out really well that way. But that was a lesson learned, and I never looked back.
That's key. I had when we had my sister on like over a year ago, she brought that up again. We've had a couple guests, same thing. You know, do you want to work on the $5 task, the $50 task, or the $500 task? Right. And it's like, no, I only want to work on the $500 task.
Yeah,
Let somebody else work on the other two. And you figured that out pretty quickly right there. It's like, it's not worth the damn headache.
yeah,
So and I will, okay. Now you mentioned Barcelona, and I want to get back to where we were, but there's a lot of great buildings and city streets and everything else to shoot in Barcelona. And one of them, as everybody knows, is the Familia Sagrada, right?
hmm
I was there. I didn't know. I look at my pictures and I'm like, nah, that's not even close to what I'm seeing with my naked eye.
yeah,
So it's like, how do you shoot something that is so grandiose, especially when you're inside, and looking straight up at the cathedral, and it's just all this, just beauty. It's
yeah.
like, what do you do to shoot something like that?
Yeah, it's difficult, and I do get that question a lot. And it's hard to take the beauty of that 3-dimensional space
Mm-hmm.
and put it into a 2-dimensional picture.
Yeah.
And it's also a part of, and we can talk about this too, is that I'd mentioned a couple books that I've written, but when you're there, standing there, enjoying this place, you're feeling the sun on your face, you're hearing the crowds or the church bells. you're seeing the people enjoying themselves in the splendor. So all these five senses are playing, mixing in your head,
Right.
but you're trying to take a two-dimensional picture of it.
Yeah. You can't
And
capture it.
so it'll almost never match that.
No, no, it just, yeah. And I think that's why I like it when as I said, I just shoot the shot so I can remember the moment. And then that's when it all kicks in. It was like, even when you go to Gaudi's townhouse right
Mhm.
there, which is like a quarter mile away. It was
Yeah.
just so cool because of the way he built that and designed it to make it an aquatic theme, like you're underwater, and as you go up the levels, you're moving up closer to the surface and then out of the surface. And you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I know you've been there, but
Yeah.
so that's the same thing. You just can't capture it on a picture at all.
Yeah. Very, very difficult.
So we're gonna bounce back now for folks, because as Linda always tells me, you start a conversation right in the middle of the conversation. We're not even at the beginning. But you came back from Europe, you realized I gotta over time, I need my guy in the middle. I gotta have a guy and or a lady. I gotta have a guy or a gal
Hmm.
to book all this other stuff. Were you doing continental, US continental and international tours at that time, or did you focus more on one and then the other? I mean, you got to come back and regroup. And how did you expand there? Because you were committed, as you said, like, I'm going to do this, but I got to do it. So I'm going to make money and I'm going to continue to get my reviews and
Yeah.
50% repeat business. How did that happen though, when you got back after that first European tour?
Yeah, I just realized that I had to work with that middleman who provides a very useful service. It's well worth it. It's not that expensive in the end. When you spread it over a group of people, especially if you do multiple trips over the years. So it's well worth it, and just gives the people a much better experience. So I decided to do that from then on. So then my goal was always to find a good tour operator in the location that knows, the travel landscape and the seasons and times of year, has the contacts with the hotels and guides and restaurants,
Mhm.
transportation companies. And then I just deal with that one person, and if there's any problem, I just call them. I don't have to call an individual vendor. And then the other thing is that I had to explain myself to every single vendor and why they should work with me, when
Okay.
that tour operator in the destination already has that reputation,
Right.
and yeah, already knows those people.
I'm bringing a group. Just take care of them. Good. How do how do you vet out these tour operators? Like talking to them on the phone or email, I'm assuming is your lines of communication. You're you're okay. Well, we're going to go to, as you said, we're going to go to Budapest. I got to find a tour operator there. I need boots on the ground, basically, right? Somebody who knows who's on the inside and knows all the good places. Because I would assume you can figure out where the good photography part of it is, but you're not shooting photographs all day.
Yeah,
You want to take in the city, the town, maybe scoot out to the outskirts a little bit for something. The food is important and you want local food. I would guess you want your people that are on the tour to mingle a little bit with the locals, because
oh yeah,
nobody wants to. If you're on a tour bus, you're not mingling with the locals, right?
for
And to
sure.
get that full experience, you got to hang out with the locals. So I mean, how do you vet out the guide?
Yeah, so a lot of it has to do with either getting referrals to these tour operators, or
Mhm.
certainly finding out from other people that have worked with them, getting their testimonials and feedback on the person, seeing what kind of experience they have. Do they have an expertise in the areas that I'm going to? But the other thing I learned, and that I learned in this very uh, in-depth course that I created called Tour Organizer Training, Get Paid to Travel.
Hold on, wait, you did what? You created a course.
I created an online course called Tour Organizer Training, Get Paid to Travel.
Is it still online? Can people
It's still
find it?
available. Yeah,
Cool.
I'm just relaunching it.
We're going to put it
And
in the show notes, folks.
yeah, great. And one thing I learned was that if I needed to be very clear with these tour operators what I was expecting of them, and what kind of hotels we wanted, what we wanted to see, the types of people we wanted to meet, the restaurants we wanted. I had to give them parameters,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise, when I would do a scouting trip, which is when I go to a place typically a year in advance,
As a tax
I
write-off. Yeah, it's because you just want to go. Come on, admit it, Ralph.
that too.
The IRS is not listening. No, no, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, they would want to show me everything,
Yeah.
because I didn't give them any guidelines. So finally I said, okay, I'm wasting their time. I'm wasting maybe some money that they're spending on things that aren't going to, really fit into my trip, and I know it. Perhaps it's, going to museums or visiting monuments and things like that, that I know that those are good things for free time, but not on my regular trips. So I needed to let them know exactly what I'm looking for. And then from then on, it got a lot easier, because now they're only showing me what I want to see. I'm not having to pick and choose, like, oh, this is totally off, and my people would never want to do that, to this is what we're looking for. Show me these kinds of things.
That's, well, that, like you said, what might people want? So you were also figuring out the the funny thing is, Ralph just took a drink of his beer, and we were debating before we hit record. You could see it on the video side, but on the audio side, and so he's got a Stella glass, and he's pouring a Heineken into it, and we think it's okay. We think
Yeah.
he's good, but if you guys disagree, please let us know. Those drinkers out there. But you, like you said, what do my people want? And you have figured out at that point in time that when you take these folks who I'm assuming are spending a decent chunk of money to
Sure.
go on this really personalized tour, because it's a small group tour, we want to get the best photography. We want to eat the really good food. It doesn't have to be the best. It just has to be damn good. It could be off a, you know, a truck on the side, but as long as it's really good. So you have to vet that out on that side, and then explain it to folks on the other side to give you the experience that everybody's looking for. So that's a lot to balance.
Yeah, it really is. And it took a while to figure that out, and to figure out what my people wanted. And, so I was very, after every trip I do, send out a survey, get the people's opinions, get testimonials, get their feedback, because I want to know what I'm doing right and what I might be doing wrong,
Sure.
so I could change it next time. And then I could just rinse and repeat the trip. So that's the best information, because I can guess all day long, but when people tell me what worked and what didn't, then I know that I'm on the right track.
That's good. That's good. I have a friend who actually does this, the same thing you do. And he did the same thing years ago. He was actually a photojournalist for, I think, the Miami Herald. He'll probably call me up later and like, it was the Miami Post, not Herald.
Yeah.
But he loved photography, did all that, did it professionally, and then started, like you, started teaching classes. And as he taught these classes, people were like, where else can what else can we shoot? Where can we go to do this? And what other types of, like what types of pictures are we that we want to take are we missing out on, right?
Mhm.
That it's as the younger kids would say, it's the FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. I didn't get that one picture that I really needed. And he does the same thing, and he's done it over the years. And in all different kinds of places. And then, people want to use their cameras or use their phones and love this stuff and a way to travel and experience the world and then come back and remember it and look at it. So you guys are damn smart. I wish I could be better at that. But so Central Europe, you come back, where did you go with the Continental tour and where did you go with your next overseas photo shoot tour? I want to know this.
Yeah, so early on, Cuba became a big
Yes,
place for me.
it
And
opened up.
well, yeah, it's been open for a while, but you always had to have a tourist card, and it wasn't easy to get in for Americans, for U.S.
Mhm.
citizens. So that became a niche for me, and now I've done Cuba 19 times, and it's one of those places where you do have to go with someone like me that can do the paperwork and has the access to the license, and because it's the U.S. government that makes it difficult for us to go down there, not the Cubans.
Now it was JFK that made it difficult for us to go down there. But anyway, I've heard, and I know somebody who's been there since they kind of opened it up and relaxed it a little bit more, because before that, anyway, we won't go how you got there before that, but people have said it's like Back to the Future kind of thing, where you're invited into somebody's home and you see, like, there's a washing machine in the kitchen, or you walk out on the street and there's an Edsel right outside there that has not been moved. But the people are so amazing, the food is incredible, and the photography with all the, for lack of a better phrase, pastel colors. It's
Yeah.
just it's Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Cuba's a phenomenal place. It's what I love about it too is that it's just 90 minutes, 90 miles south of our border here, and so it's really easy to get to. We fly straight from Miami to Havana. We don't go through any second or third countries. So we go down 100% legally. I would never go down with a group not legally. Um, it's always, not always, but it's been open for the most part to U.S. travelers, but with these sanctions and paperwork and stuff, Obama opened it up and made it easier, and then Trump
Mhm.
closed it back to kind of what it was before. But we can still go down there, and so that's a trip that I just brought back this year for the first time in about 6 years, and I've got 2 trips going next year. But it's a wonderful place. So I love Cuba. Europe's probably my favorite continent. I just love the variety over there, and the different languages and traditions and customs and everything that you find over there. Food. And everything's so concentrated. It's like the eastern part of the U.S. with the states. Each one of them's a country. It's
Mhm.
So it's a fascinating place to visit, and so I love to bring groups there. I
So
love.
where have you been, or I should say, where have you not been that you really, really want to go? And maybe not taking a group. This is just you. Like, my ultimate destination is what?
Well, I've been to Tokyo, but I would love to see more of Japan,
Hmm.
and that's one country I'd like to explore and really get to know. Um, what else? I just got to Antarctica this year,
Oof.
which that was pretty amazing. not a country, of course, but a continent, and but a pretty amazing place.
That is the only continent that does not listen to this podcast.
Probably got some down there that do.
We need somebody down there. And then
Yeah.
we've covered all the continents.
Yeah, well, next time I go, I'll have to put in a review from down there for you.
Thank you. I'd appreciate it. But, do you have anywhere else? I mean, have you been to like Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos?
I've been to Cambodia is one of my favorite countries. A place that's absolutely fantastic. Vietnam, I do trips to Vietnam, India. I've been to Thailand. That's another country I'd like to see more of. I've only been to Bangkok and Koh Samui. India is absolutely fantastic. Sri Lanka, beautiful. Also been to Bhutan and Nepal, which are fantastic, really, really interesting cultures. And where else? I've not been to too many parts of Africa. I've only been to Egypt and Morocco in northern Africa.
That's it?
Yeah. So there are parts of Africa I'd like to do a safari.
Yeah, that's kind of, it's kind of sketchy though in different areas in Africa. And I think having somebody like you, anyone who says, I want to go to Africa and I want to see this, they should probably contact you. Get the greatest pictures you can or photos you can. But there are certain areas of Africa that you have to navigate really well. Like Sri Lanka or not Sri Lanka, Sierra Leone, right? You're not walking into Sierra Leone. You're not going into different spots, and just because you might need somebody to get you through there. Morocco, every time I've never been there, but every movie you see from Morocco, they're always just showing like the market, and it's just everybody's moving 50,000 miles an hour, and it's just jammed up. And I'm sure it's absolutely gorgeous. What's the best thing about Morocco?
What is the best thing?
Yeah. Getting out of the city.
I love Morocco. I've done that about 7 or 8 times, and it's a beautiful country. Reminds me a lot of California, actually, especially when you get on the coast. But the food is off the charts phenomenal. It's the history, the people, the architecture, the photography. It's just all wonderful. And you got the mountains and the sea. It's and the markets. I just love the markets. You'd mentioned the markets. I love markets anywhere.
Well, isn't Morocco, if I'm not mistaken, was really, really, they had a good, I don't, this is where I need Lynn because she would know what word I'm thinking about. But like when it came to the trade industry and connecting people, trades throughout the world, I believe Morocco was extremely important and involved in that. Please correct me if I'm wrong. You can.
Yeah, no, I believe that's right. It was kind of a crossroads for a lot of different cultures, and Morocco. I always say that to me, Morocco seems more like Europe South than it does Northern Africa.
Okay.
And there's parts of Morocco that speak Spanish still, and a lot of them speak French. A lot of the people there speak French. So it was a crossroads, and so it's a really fascinating place.
Yeah, all those legionnaires that were down there. That's a good spot. What's your favorite place to just like right now, as of today, you'll never get tired of going to?
Spain.
Okay. Spain. All right. In the continent, in the US, we'll just say North American continent, what is your favorite place that you'll never get tired of going to?
In the North American continent?
Yeah.
let's see.
You'd be like, Chicago, that's where I'm from, damn it. Shut the hell up, man.
No, I do love Chicago. It's one of my top cities
All
in the
right, what's your
world.
favorite deep dish pizza in Chicago? Come on.
I like Lou Malnati's.
Okay. All right. So,
Yeah.
but what's your favorite place in North America? Like, I'll go there as many times as possible.
I mean, I lived in Southern California for 15 years and I loved it. I don't miss going back there too much, but I love the weather, of course, but I love the variety as well and the different things to do from the ocean to the desert and mountains and Mexico. And there's just so much variety within a couple hours.
That's good.
That's what I like. To me, that makes a great place.
Do you still do um, North American tours at all, or are you still?
Yeah, during COVID, I brought back my Chicago tour
Mhm.
and I started looking at doing some other trips. But for the most part, Chicago is kind of the only trip that I do still in the U.S.
Do you? All right, I've never been to Chi-Town, believe it or not.
Wow.
I've only flown through Chi-Town.
Yeah.
Um, but my question is, do you prefer cityscape or like countryscape when you're booking your tours? Which is your preference, or do you try to blend both?
I try to blend both, but I am moving more towards the nature and countryside.
Okay.
Really appreciating quiet, no traffic, being able to get into places and crowd. I just, as I get older, the crowds just, bum me out. So I try to spend more time in the countryside.
And do you find that your people, your clients appreciate that more too?
I think so too. Yeah. My clients are typically at 40s and up
Hmm.
age group. And so I think, they've traveled a fair amount. So they've been to a lot of the big cities. So they're looking for more off the beaten path kind of destinations in, maybe the same places. Like instead of Rome, Florence, and Venice,
If
they want to do other parts of Italy that
sure.
are, off the beaten path that they haven't done yet.
Yeah, John Grissom wrote a book about northern Italy. I think it was Bologna that he was talking about, and a former NFL player goes up there, and the guy's like, "Oh my gosh, this is so incredible," and the food's so different than the rest of Italy, and et cetera, et cetera. So I get it off the beaten path. And when I was in Ireland, you were talking about those type of things, getting away from everything, just walking along. I can't remember. I think it was in Connemara, and I looked down, and there's this purple thistle, and this thing is just the most beautiful color purple. There's nothing around. There's no one around. It is I would say one of the best pictures I've ever taken, just because. And it was just like just random, but it was away from all the noise and the traffic and everything. So I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
And oof. So what is your typical group? I mean, folks, they're listening now. They're going to be like, "Where is Ralph? How do I find him?" And I want to get on one of his trips. What is? Give me a typical trip with Ralph, the Continental Drifter. We're going. We're going somewhere. And
Mhm.
what does it look like? How long is it? What's the average day? Give me the rundown. I want to know what like this whole trip is. I spent my $50 with you, Ralph. Where are we going?
$50.
Well, just throwing it out there. You can move a decimal point or two if you
Yeah,
want, but
we're not going too far on $50.
make a mess.
Yeah. So one thing that I started doing actually right before COVID, and it turned out to be something that kind of worked after COVID, was doing shorter trips where we're moving around less and
Mhm.
spending less time in vehicles. So that's one of the reasons I took Morocco off the calendar, is because there's a fair amount of driving between locations.
Yeah.
And so take my northern Spain's Basque Country and Rioja trip, for example. We spent 4 nights in San Sebastian, Spain, and 4 nights in Rioja, which is the interior. It's more the wine region of Spain. It's one of the most famous wine regions of Spain.
Yeah,
And yeah, you probably know about it. And so 4 nights in San Sebastian, which is really about the food. There's more Michelin stars per capita there than any other city in the world. You're on the sea, a lot of history, great food. Um, Chocolate wine tasting, which is a particular type of wine that you find there in northern Spain. And then we spent 4 nights going south into the interior of Spain. And there we go to the Rioja region and spend 4 nights in a former family villa in a hill town that you might find in Italy or something. And then this is the wine region where all these incredible wine estates are. So absolutely gorgeous. I never knew that people spent that much money on creating these wine estates. I mean, of course, I know the land is expensive, but the property themselves, the buildings, really, really fabulous. And then we spent 4 nights there, and then we drive up to Bilbao and fly out of Bilbao, Spain. And so that gives you an overview of the trip. That's a 9-day trip. But then typically we will have an earlier breakfast, maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then we'll go out and we'll do some olive oil tasting or start some wine tasting, do a walking tour of the place that we are to get an orientation of it so that people feel comfortable walking around on their own. We'll probably have a wine tasting. We'll have a food tour by a local guide. Perhaps we'll drive to a couple wineries and have some wine tastings, visit a small village with a local guide. So, and then I do about a half-day scheduled, half-day free time.
Okay.
So that's really nice because you get a real nice hybrid. You get the framework of a trip that's already planned, but then you have enough free time to do your own thing.
Take a siesta after all eating and drinking there.
Absolutely.
You know, that whole thing right there you just mentioned, there wasn't anything about taking one single picture.
Yeah, I used to do more photo tours and even photo workshops, but I've kind of gotten away from that. It's a different type of trip. It's a different type of traveler. And I found that I was kind of maybe scaring some of my, I don't know, friends, family, people that knew me that thought you had to be a hardcore photographer to travel with me. And so I've spent a lot of time trying to back away from that and let people know that these are very casual. You don't have to have a camera at all to be on these trips, but who doesn't want to be in the right place at the right time with beautiful light and fewer crowds, whether you got a camera or not?
Right. I want fewer crowds, beautiful places, amazing food, wine, and olive oil. And half my day is with the group and the other half is just chilling. And I have an expert who can tell me, hey, I'm trying to take this picture. How do I do it?
Absolutely.
That's a perfect combination.
Yeah, it really is. And I lead all of our trips. So that's an important thing to know too, is that me, the company owner, is on every trip. So it's not like I'm just sending you somewhere and hoping for the best. I'm there to make sure that everything goes well.
Why would you not want to go?
Right?
Come on. I'm picking out new places too. It's like, we're going here. There's a trip. I'm going to spend this. All right. So we're getting close. We got a little bit of time, but I want to know, what was one trip that you were like, we're going to do this trip. I planned it, everything, and it was a shit show. And you're like, nope, that is off the books. I'm not taking anybody there again.
Well, one trip that I had that was really kind of messed up was I tried to do a trip to Eastern Europe. Eastern Cuba.
Mm.
the eastern part of the Cuban island. And I'd already done 8 or 10 trips that are typically Havana, Cienfuegos, Trinidad, and the Tobacco region. That's sort of the beaten path. So I wanted to do something to the eastern part of the country and see some other parts of it myself. But when we got there, I realized that it was very difficult to get drinking water for my people.
Oh,
And what happened is that the restaurants were buying up all of the bottled water for themselves and their clients, and there wasn't any available for me to provide my clients. And so we had a couple plain snafus, and just a couple things went wrong that were unusual. Excuse me.
Way to put it, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
that's what happens when you pour a Heineken in the stove.
I know. Excuse me.
So
that was one trip that I didn't run again.
Yeah, I was going to say scratch it.
Yeah.
It's like we can't have water. Basic survival skills, water. What was one that surprised you the most? Like you kind of, and granted, as you said, you do these scouting tours yourself. But what was one, even if you did or didn't scout it, and you took the route back, and it was like, that was like the coup de grace?
I would say Antarctica.
Really?
That was one place that I wasn't able to go scout. So I went down there with a group. It was everyone's first time. And so we all kind of, but I was very comfortable with the tour operator that was the basis for the trip. But Antarctica turned out to be just absolutely phenomenal. It's so remote, and you really understand how remote you are, and you don't see a TV antenna, a fence, airplane trail, or nothing man-made except for your own ship and the other people that you're traveling with
Right.
for thousands of miles. So that to me was really spectacular, and I was just blown away by it.
That's awesome. Did you go down through Ushuaia and then
No,
Grenada? Did you go through Grenada, or how did you get down?
we actually flew down. So this is a flying cruise. Yep, you fly down from Punta Arenas, Chile, to the continent.
So you guys avoided the Drake Passage and everything?
Yep, 2.5 days of potential misery each way.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And what about and you landed and you were just like,
oh yeah. And I'm talking, we're on a big airplane, like 75 people with flight attendants and lunch on the way and all that good stuff. And so, I mean, it was a proper airplane, and we're there in an hour and 45 minutes.
you're not selling it. People want to think they're going to primitive. You're selling it as we have flight attendants. They're serving us first class.
Yeah.
No, that's good though.
That was wonderful. And we stayed on the smallest, excuse me?
How many days were you guys there?
Yeah, so it was I think it was 2 nights in Punta Arenas, then 5 nights on the ship on the continent, and then 1 or 2 nights back in Punta Arenas. And what's nice about this is that there only 100 people are allowed to get off the ship at any one landing point. And this is the smallest ship in the industry at just 67 tour participants plus crew. So it's got the smallest crew to client ratio in the industry. You save 2.5 days each way of potential misery sailing the notoriously rough Drake Passage.
Yes.
You're there, you spend 5 nights on the ship. The whole ship can get off at every landing because it's less than 100 people. And it was just out of this world. And the weather was like 25 to 45 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was beautiful because, of course, we're down there in their summer. So it just was a phenomenal trip. I really, really enjoyed it.
Wow. Hold on, I gotta take a minute. I'm just thinking about it. That's just, especially with the way you just put it. It's like, because people go, Antarctica, why would I go there? And they feel like, I'm gonna fly down, I'm gonna land or get off something, and I'm gonna crawl to this hut where I'm gonna huddle up all day long while everything in my body freezes every time I walk outside, but I want to experience it. And the way you explained it, it's like, that's super pleasant.
Oh, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't like
Yeah.
that at all. It was beautiful.
Everybody should do that.
Hmm.
If you got a couple different things that we got to, it's plug time. This is time to plug Ralph and your business in Continental Drifter. And do you want to start with the books that you've written and published, and where can people find them? Or do you want to start with, oh shit, I want to book with Ralph and I want to go on a trip?
Yeah, I mean, if people would like to go on a trip, they can go to continentaldrifter.co, and you'll see all my trips there under the tours tab, and all the information's there, pricing, dates, everything. I'm also doing custom tours, so if someone can't necessarily go on my dates, I can set up a trip to that same location, and you can go on your dates with your group when you want to go, however you'd like to go. And I can put that trip together for people as well. So that's at continentaldrifter.co, which is the hub for everything that I do.
We will put that in the show notes, folks. Don't try to drive and
Yeah.
text the note to yourself. It'll be in the show notes. Come find us and you'll get it.
Yeah.
Continentaldrifter.co.
Right.
Now,
CO.
you got some books going on that you were talking about. What are the books all about?
Yeah. So I just have written 3 books this year, and they're part of a series called The Mindful and Intentional Traveler. And I mentioned as I get older, I'm starting to look at travel differently. And instead of trying to tick all these items off my bucket list, I'm trying to travel deeper, not wider. So I'm trying to get a more deep experience in the place than trying to see a lot of a little of a lot. Right. So do a deeper dive into a place, spend 7 days staying in one location, or 4 and 4, like on the Spain trip. France's magical Dordogne trip, where we spend a week in a private 11th century castle, and we spend all 7 days there, 7 nights, and you pack and unpack once, and then all the day trips are within a half hour, maybe an hour away, so everything's right there. So super convenient and a lot less moving and driving around. There's a couple other trips I've got coming up. I do have Spain, northern Portugal, Armenia, and the Republic of Georgia. So I'm often asked what my favorite place is, and Georgia's way up there. The Republic of Georgia, it's a country in the Caucasus region by Armenia, Russia, and it's absolutely phenomenal place. Great tourist infrastructure, wonderful, fresh, local food, nice people, beautiful scenery, and a ton of history. And for someone like yourself, you probably have appreciation that it's said to Georgia is said to have the oldest wine culture in the world.
That works for me.
Yeah, and it's about they found remnants of wine culture upwards of 8,000 years old.
Yeah, I just popped a beer this weekend that my friend Craig, who used to be a sponsor of the show, and like, oh, there's a Strafthauser sitting in my fridge right now. So I got to tell a little story about, this is one of the oldest Belgian breweries, and they have a half-mile pipeline that distributes the beer to the tap for everyone to drink. And I was like, yum, delicious. So
Wow.
yeah, I would appreciate the wine too.
Yeah, that's great.
Definitely appreciate the wine. So, all right. Well, I will put all this in, actually, Lynn will put all this in the show notes. I don't do that part, folks. She's a lot smarter. She's not here. So, her heavy lift is to do the other stuff while I just talk to the guests and enjoy their company. But Ralph, I got to tell you what, this is, I've enjoyed this. And there's so many, I had so many questions and so many things that I wanted to have back and forth with you on that, but I held back because, then it's just us conversing. And I didn't think it was good for the show and our listeners, but I got to tell you what, we, I thank you for being on the podcast today. I really do. I wish you many years of success. You figured out how to tap into a passion and make it a way for you to sustain your living, right? So he took a passion and he turned it into a business, folks. If you didn't get what I was just saying, and it looks like you're thriving and surviving and enjoying every day, and you have all good things to say right now. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'll never be a billionaire doing this, but I have gotten more life experiences than most people will ever get. And to me, it's about the experiences because we can't take it with us. Doesn't matter how much money you die with in the bank, you can't take it with you. So I prefer to spend my time and resources on experiences than on things and stuff.
Yep.
So to me, that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned and that I, could pass along to people is we have to live for today and not always be worried about what happened yesterday because it's gone or what's going to happen tomorrow because it'll never come. We have to be concerned about today and the here and now. And that's the main reason I wrote the books, is that as a travel photographer, we go to these wonderful places and see and I realized that I just saw the place through the viewfinder of a camera. And I am so much more appreciative of putting the camera down, turning off that phone, disconnecting, and being present. I think that's the best things we could do wherever that is. It doesn't have to be just traveling.
I gotta tell you what, folks, I can't wrap up this show any better than that. Ralph, thank you. The listeners, thank you. Y'all have a great week. Here we go. Hold on one second. Let me shut this other part off.
Sure.
Oh, I'm stuck. I got cords and things and I'm gonna hit stop recording. Yes, please stop. Boom.
Beauty.
They ask it twice.